Good morning, all. This is Jack from Charting the Markets, and this is the Bigger Picture webinar for the morning of Wednesday, the 6th of August. My disclaimer, I do this for educational purposes only. I'm here to share my technical analysis with you. I hope you can take some of what I'm doing and learn from it, transfer to range charts. I'm not here to issue trading signals. Right, I've been changing around a few things lately. I've been doing a lot more posts before the markets open, and I need to, just as sort of switching things from night to morning, I need to switch the Bigger Picture webinar to either Wednesday morning or Thursday morning. So I'm trying it out on a Wednesday morning. If you prefer Thursday morning, but I think one way or another, it's going to be one of those mornings. So it's a lot easier to prepare for it because, of course, after the close on Wednesday, it actually takes hours before the EOD charts update. So it's a lot easier to do it in the mornings. And of course, I'm just rebasing most of my work towards the pre-market rather than post. All right, great. Because I do the post-market on the main Substack anyway, and that's in any case, and do all the futures and what I think is happening in the and where everything's up to. All right, great. So any comments, welcome. But this is the first of the new format, and this is the last, of course. The Bigger Picture webinar, which is not going to be done, which isn't going to be behind a paywall. So, and I'm getting all the paperwork out for that at the moment. Okay, great. Let's get started. So anyway, ES, we saw a break back below the monthly pivot yesterday, which is a pretty good match with the daily middle band. So what we saw really was, having seen a break above the daily middle band on the day before, we saw then on Monday, we saw a break below yesterday. So on Friday, break above on Monday, saw a break below on Tuesday, and this is actually very encouraging for a breakdown, a continuation of this sequence here. NQ, we saw the same. On the sell signals here, we reached the possible near miss target on NQ. We reached the full target on NQ pretty much. We reached the possible near miss target on ES. We haven't yet reached it on RTY. So, which RTY actually managed to go a bit higher yesterday, which the others didn't manage. YM has gone marginally higher than Monday's high as well, actually. All right, DAX and STX, little look like topping patterns here, little level tops or part-formed head and shoulder patterns. Better than we've got on the US indices, but I have to say the break below, in terms of the sequence of breaking above the daily middle band and then breaking back below the next day, that's an encouraging sequence for then seeing a further breakdown and then to continue forming these head and shoulder patterns. All right, great. Let's have a look at the bigger picture charts. And on SPX, the close yesterday was at 62.99, and the daily middle band was at 63.11. So we saw a clear break back below. On the Qs, daily middle band closed at 561.32, and Qs closed at 560.27. Again, a clear break back down below it. No current divergence on either of those, of course. Looking at ES, we saw, well, the same. A stronger break below the daily middle band there, because that's at 6348 and it closed at 6325. These were all perfectly satisfactory in terms of modest rejections from the daily middle band level. What we need to see now is it can go above intraday. We could retest these highs we could retest Monday's highs, for instance, and set up level tops and come back down. But I'm liking the head and shoulder setup that we've got. Let's have a quick look at that. Right, looking at SPX, obviously drawing the arrows, it's a little higher than I drew. We've got a little higher than the left shoulders did, but looks very nice. So I'm liking the breakdown from here, and we will see how it goes. Qs, just as nice. Very, very nice indeed. Dyer and IWM, I was warning in my post yesterday morning that need to watch these 50-hour moving averages. If these break and convert, then that opens up a retest the high. Obviously, you can see IWM was testing that basically at the end of the day, and really those resistance levels are together. Okay, let's have a look at IWM. Bear with me a moment. All right, IWM, on the daily chart, we got closer to the daily middle band without a full test. We've still got a weak RSI 14 sell signal fixed, and I'm still liking the downside. On the hourly chart, no current divergence. Might possibly have an RSI 5 sell signal brewing there, I'm not quite sure. whether, did that make a higher high? No, it didn't make a higher high. If that makes a higher high, that would get a modest hourly RSI 5 sell signal brewing. Nothing brewing on the 15-minute, but at the moment, this is still double top breaks down. We see a back test, as you often do when you see a double top breakdown or a head and shoulders breakdown, and then it heads down for real. Looking at DAX, still got a lovely looking double top here. We have, having held the 50 DMA as support for quite a while and beautifully, we've come back and back tested it so far. Obviously, that's holding as resistance on Nikkei. Nikkei, we've seen a bit of a retrace here, nothing really in the way of patterns or divergence here. But I'm thinking that to a significant degree, this will just probably follow the US markets. Okay, let's have a look at DX. DX, we've got a little head and shoulders here, which is trying to break down and has so far been trading in a very narrow range, which doesn't either fail AIHS on a move over 99 or continue down. A weak 60-minute buy signal fixed and hasn't reached the possible near miss target yet. Looking at the other currencies, we've got EURUSD, where we've got a mirror IHS, which has broken up. We'll see how that goes. That hasn't failed and it hasn't continued higher yet. GBP USD, we've got a little IHS which broke up and that hasn't failed yet either. USD JPY, we've got a possible little IHS forming here. Not as well formed as the others. We've got a 6-minute buy signal and that's reached the possible near miss target. USD CAD, possible, well, we had a head and shoulders breakdown here. That hasn't failed either. We're just basically stuck where we've been for the last couple of days after Friday's big decline in the dollar. I'm thinking that might get reversed, but we'll see whether I'm right. In terms of USD Australian dollar, we've got a double bottom here, which has broken up, and at the moment looks as though we're continuing up into that target. And NZ, we've got a inverted head and shoulders, which broke down here and failed. We've got an alternate better inverted head and shoulders here, which is actually now fully formed, as waiting to see whether it's going to break up. These both on Australian dollar and NZ, although they're not actually part of the US dollar index, these would both be a match with the dollar going down. All right, USD, we've got this IHS which broke up with the target in the 101.65 area, and at the moment that is back testing the neckline. That's not inherently bearish at all. I'm still liking that pattern, but we will see how that goes. Looking at USD, possible head and shoulders forming here, but nothing particularly high quality. GBP USD, we've got a head and shoulders. No, it's a double. No, it is a head and shoulders. It's a head and shoulders which is broken down here with a target in the 1.292 area, and I'm still liking that. That of course would be a match with the dollar going up. USD JPY. This could be. Well, this isn't a head and shoulders here. There's no really obvious pattern here on the daily. This could be a bear flag, keeping an open mind. USD CAD, we've got a possible IHS forming here. This would be a match with obviously the dollar going up. Australian dollar, not that easy to tell what's going on here really, and we've got a possible double top trying to break down on NZ USD, and that would be a match with the dollar going up as well. Overall, I'm still quite liking the dollar up. Okay, looking at ZB. ZB, we could well be turning here. We've got the 60-minute sell signal has reached the possible near miss target. We've got a possible little level top breaking down here, but the target is only back at the weekly pivot. But that could be forming a larger head and shoulder pattern. I've got to say there's a number of things suggesting that bonds are about to go down and yields are going to go up. On ZN, we've got a very nice looking trend line here. I drew that in, and then it came and hit it perfectly, and it's been holding. I'm wondering if we're going to be heading back into the corresponding support trend line, which is coming up into the 110.20 area. Let's have a look at the bigger picture charts on those. Right, TYX, not a lot to see really. Looks like a bullish consolidation at the moment. Looking at TNX, well, on the daily chart, on the daily chart, we've got no current divergence. Obviously, on a daily lower band right at the moment. On TNX, though, on the 60-minute chart, we've got an RSI 14 buy signal fixed, and we've got an RSI 5 buy signal fixed. We will see how that develops. But this low was retested as expected. It's not a double bottom, it's too large, but this would be a good time for it to turn back up, and I'm thinking it might well. Looking at TLT, we've got a possible RSI 14 sell signal brewing there too. So bonds down and yields up may well be the next direction. So we'll see how that goes. All right, let's have a look at oils. Now, one thing to mention here on oils is that Trump is strongly encouraging Saudi Arabia to boost production to cut price. Now, actually, Trump did say that, of course, if the oil price fell, that would put a lot of pressure on Russia. Actually, that's right. It would put a lot of pressure on Russia. So we'll see how that goes. But at the moment, it has responded by coming down from 71 to 65. We've been seeing a little bit of a rally here, but if Saudi really does boost production quite a bit, then this could pull this back down into the 50s. I'm going to try and do a post on Friday looking at the bigger picture on oil, which bigger picture leans more bullish, but I'm thinking we may well go back down to the 50s before it bottoms out. Bigger picture, I don't know, weakening economy tends not to be that great for oil, but I have to say the pattern setup overall on the bigger picture on oil is suggesting that we may well see a lot more upside over coming years. We'll see. HO has broken down from this head and shoulders with a target in the 2.16 area to the 2.2 area, and I'm still liking that target. We had a little buy signal that's now made target. RBOB hasn't quite made it down to this megaphone support. I'm still expecting to see that hit, and I've got that at about the 2.07 area. 60-minute buy signal has again reached the possible no miss target. NG, where we now have daily positive divergence, which is something I'm keeping an eye on. But I'm thinking the obvious thing is to go down to about, I think it was about the 2.7 area, but I'll come to that on the bigger picture chart. Let's have a look at that now. Okay, on oil. Oil, still got a weak RSI 14 sell signal fixed on the daily, obviously well below the daily middle band here. I'm liking more downside, and if Saudi boosts their production, then I think more downside is very, very likely coming. We shall see. Bigger picture, I'm seeing this. Hang on, wait a second. This wedge here from the high in 2022, it looks as though it's trying to break up. I'm not really seeing it going down below this trend line in all probability. I've got that in about the 52, 53 area, but if we get down there, that's probably a pretty solid buy, and we could see a big rally up into the 90s, maybe higher. So we will see. All right, looking at heating oil, of course, we've got a pretty nice bullish falling wedge there too. Looking at gas oil, falling wedge, and these are all breaking up. I'm thinking we may well come back and retest the lows, set up double bottoms, possibly test these trend lines and expand the wedges. But bigger picture, these are leaning towards the bull side. Shorter term, I think we've got some okay bottoming patterns here. We could be forming a right shoulders here, for instance, on IHS, on heating oil. WTIC could be forming an IHS as well. I am wondering about that, but I've got to say I'm leaning overall towards, given the overall economic picture, towards seeing a retest of the low. And on gas oil here, this looks like a bear flag, which would be setting up a retest of the low. But I'm not thinking it'd go a lot lower than that. All right, natural gas. Natural gas, we had, on the bigger picture, we had a double bottom break up here, and it looks like it's probably failing. But it may not be failing, but it certainly looks like it's failing. If we were to reach this trend line support, I've got that in about the 2.45 area, and I'm also wondering about the test of this trend line here, which would be in the 2.65 area. This is what I'm thinking might be tested, and then we go up on this RSI 5 buy signal. I would say I have noted on previous editions of this that, hang on, wait a second, bear with me a moment, that obviously we are coming into quite a strong bullish period for natural gas at the moment, and that over the next 5 months, this is assuming an increase of $1.40. That's a big increase. That's a very sizable increase, almost 50% from here. And the seasonals are worth keeping an eye on. Now that can play out in a number of different ways, but nonetheless, that's worth keeping an eye on. All right, great. Let's have a look at metals. Metals, it does look as though we may be reversing back down here. Now, the 60-minute sell signal on GC has reached the possible near miss target. We've got a nice looking little double top here. If we see a break down from this and it makes target, that would have a target in about the 33-35 area. Looking at SI, little IHS has almost made target. The larger double top has not been in validation, of course. This could just be a bear flag forming. On palladium, we've got a possible head and shoulders here, and it's thinking about continuing down. We've only seen a slight break lower than this low now, and this could be the second low of a small double bottom, but I am wondering about down here. On platinum, we made the target, which was a head and shoulders to the downside, and we've got a little double bottom here, which has broken up, but has so far not followed through to the upside, which would have a target at about the 1420 to 30 area. All right, let's have a look at HG, where this looks like a bearish consolidation before this goes down. Now, I am liking the downside on copper here because looking at the this trend line was established, and it's a very nice resistance trend line. This is the corresponding support trend line. I'm liking it certainly down into this, which is in the 4.05 area, but if that breaks, that's looking really at a possible retracement all the way down to the 2022 low at 3.135. I'm quite liking that. I don't think the tariffs on copper are going to be doing it any favors, and I think we're looking overall. I think we're going to be looking at an economic slowdown over the next year or so, and that's not going to do any favors for copper either. Gold still got this bullish consolidation, maybe a triangle. I'm still waiting for a retest of the all-time high, and we still haven't seen it yet. I'd like to see it sooner rather than later. Looking in the short term, silver is looking toppy in this 29 area, which I was talking about. Sorry, 39 area, which I was talking about before we reached it. We'll see how that goes, but I've got some pretty strong resistance there. It's on all of my charts here, and so far that's broken very slightly for a Pinocchio, but mainly it is holding. Silver, of course, we still have an RSI 14 sell signal fixed. Looking at palladium, palladium obviously broke above this high here. Could this be an overall bear flag forming? Yes, maybe it could actually. We did have an RSI 5 and an RSI 14 sell signal fixed. The RSI 5 sell signal has made target. The RSI 14 is still open. On platinum, we reached obviously some pretty decent resistance there too. On platinum, we didn't have any sell signal on the RSI 5 or the RSI 14 on the daily, but that's a nice resistance level there, and so far it's been holding pretty well. All right, looking at GDX, we saw a bit higher on GDX, and I'm wondering if it might make it to this trend line here, which I've got in the 60 area. On the daily chart, no current divergence apart from a very old weak RSI 14 sell signal. On the hourly chart, no divergence at the moment. It's been a nice breakup, and I'm thinking it may well go higher. We are still holding some decent resistance on GDXJ. No divergence on the daily, no divergence currently on the hourly either. I'm sure we're in this possible bull flag, and we're getting pretty close to flag resistance. If this breaks up, I'd be looking for a retest of this high here at 71.84. Okay, let's have a look at the other commodities. Now, KC, I've got this drawn at the moment as a possible triangle. This looks like a bearish consolidation. This should result in a retest of this low here, so we will see how that goes. On SB, this is looking less and less as though this inverted head and shoulders is going to break up. If not, I'd be leaning towards this retest on the low. That would be in about the 15.4 area. Looking at CC, CC, the IHS failed. The little head and shoulders broke down. I wonder if that might fail too. Could be an overall triangle forming or bear flag, but this would be unusual to get two fails in a row like that. So waiting to see what happens here. Back over the monthly pivot and the weekly pivot at the moment. On CT, I'm still expecting to see a full retest this low here at 6.25, but I could be being disappointed here. But I'm still leaning towards seeing that. Looking at lumber, lumber 60-minute sell signal fixed, not that far away from the possible near miss target. We've got a possible head and shoulders forming here. We will see how that goes. If that breaks down, that would have a target in about the 665 area. Looking at ZW, ZW, I've been leaning short, and I do have some more targets to the downside. We've still got a 60-minute buy signal fix. That's not delivered a great deal so far. Corn has actually made my bigger picture target. I'll show you on the daily chart, but got a possible 60-minute buy signal brewing, but I've still got open targets below on wheat and soy. On soy, seen a little bit of a rally. Looks kind of like a bear flag at the moment. On soybean oil, we've broken down from a double top with a target in the 52.2 area, and I'm leaning towards that making target. We've got a 60-minute buy signal, which is trying to deliver a bit of a rally at the moment. Live cattle, we've got a possible double top forming here, wondering about a retest and a fail, but it could just be continuation higher. On lean hogs, we have gone a little higher here. We've made it to the double bottom resistance, which is great, but on the bigger picture, I'm leaning towards seeing a retest this high. We'll see whether we get that. Okay, let's have a look at those on the bigger picture charts. Right, and actually I need to open the crypto charts. Bear with me a moment. All right, coffee. Coffee, we've got we're holding the daily middle band as resistance at the moment. I'm leaning towards seeing a retest this low. We'll see whether we get it. If we do get it, we'll have a nice looking possible RSI 5, RSI 14 buy signal growing. On the bigger picture, we're still obviously fairly elevated by historical standards, but we're a lot closer to the norms that we'd expect to see. Sugar, we still have this apocalyptic pattern, which is broken down with a target in the 6.5 to 9 area, and I'm still wary about that reaching target. It's looking increasingly as though we're going to retest this low here. There's quite a nice falling wedge. I'm thinking we might well see a double bottom here and then a larger rally. I'm looking at the daily chart. We've got a weak RSI 14 buy signal that's fixed and hasn't delivered a great deal so far. Well below the daily middle band here. I think the obvious next target is probably a retest this low at 15.44. Looking at cocoa, RSI 14 sell signal fixed. On the monthly chart, leaning towards the downside. Obviously, by historical standards, this is pretty high. So I'm thinking this isn't a double top though. It is too. I've marked in the arrows, but it's actually in functional terms it's too large. Looking at the daily chart, no current divergence. Leaning short, really, more than anything else. Looking at wheat, wheat hasn't made it to the target yet. I'm looking for a retest of this low here at 499, and very possibly a retest this low here at 495.5. If so, that could give us a second low of a double bottom on a bigger scale. On corn, I was looking for a retest of this low here at 385. And we've seen it. Now we could come down and see a retest of this low here at 307.25. That's quite a distance, and it would totally mess up the nice looking potential level top double bottom that we've got here. So I'm not really expecting to see that, but it is a possibility. No current divergence on the RSI 5. We've got a possible RSI 14 buy signal brewing on the daily chart. Looking at soybeans, I've been reading this as a flag pretty much for the last, well, several months. This is breaking down. It's got a target down in the 93606 area. That is very much the obvious target. No current divergence on the daily chart. Nothing suggesting we won't make that. Cotton. Bigger picture, we've got this huge falling wedge, which hasn't broken up yet, but is really close and thinking about it. I'd love to see it break up. Would we need a retest to the low after that? Nope. We've already seen it. We've got a lovely looking double bottom here. All we're waiting for is some buyers to set the ball rolling. Lumber. This looks like a bear flag forming. I've been saying that for months, and still it very much looks like bear flag forming. Sooner or later, I'd expect this to go back into a retest this low here at 352.50, which would be almost halving from the current levels, so watching that with great interest. We do have a nice looking potential little level top here, although it wouldn't get us all of, no, it would pretty much get us all of the way. This is really nice. I'm leaning short. Lumber, no current divergence on the daily chart, but I am very much looking around for a potential high here. Okay, let's have a look at the big picture on crypto. Now, looking at the hourly chart, we're seeing a bit of a retracement here. That's not surprising because that's what we'd expect to see when we're seeing a retracement on equities. Where might that go? Well, I've got two levels I'm watching here, and the first one is the 50 DMA, which we've been testing in recent days at 112.644. If that breaks, I've got a bigger level at the 200 DMA at 99.459, and I'm wondering if it might go there. Looking at Solana. Solana, we've seen a bit of a rally and we've been coming back down again. I'm leaning towards it coming down and testing this rising support trend line, which is currently in about the 145 area. I would say that's also supported by, hang on, a head and shoulders here, which has broken down with a target in the 147 area. So this looks like, cautiously, but nonetheless, this looks like a bearish consolidation. I'm leaning towards it heading down and making that target. All right, looking at Ethereum, we've got a weak RSI 14 sell signal fixed, and on the daily chart, and that hasn't played out yet. We've come back up. We're back testing the daily middle band, and at the moment, it is just below it. This would be a very good area to fail. If it does, then I've still got this double top, which is broken down with a target in the 3080 to 3180 area, and that would be the obvious target area there. I'm thinking my feeling is this would just be a retracement, and we would probably come back and start retesting the highs on equities, but my feeling on that may be wrong, of course. I've still got this idea that this rally can more or less hold up into the end of the year, and it might be able to, but I have to say there's a lot of economic bad news that also needs to be borne into account. Enough of that and enough new bad news could actually just drag the markets down back to the April lows and maybe lower. So that is something to be wary of. All right, great. In that case, that's a wrap. I will catch you guys again on Saturday or Sunday. All right, take care.